Heart of the Wolf by author A. Mariposa. Now available on Amazon in paperback and ebook format. Chapter 8. Zippies was a weird hodgepodge pizza joint over the bridge on the south side of Black River. It used to be a house that got converted into a pizza parlor, then the owners built an arcade off the front and turned the rear parking lot into a beer garden. Now it was part family pizza place, part arcade, part late-night hangout. Behind the gravel parking lot was a few acres of empty grass leading into the forest. Zippies attracted pretty much every crowd in the upriver community. On a Friday night, it was noisy and chaotic. It was pretty much the only thing to do in Black River besides the mini golf course down Highway 20 and the new climbing wall that closed at 7 p.m. The gravel parking lot was packed. Gareth found a spot at the far end next to the woods. Night had fallen, and the parking lot was lit by a lonely street lamp half buried by foliage. Gareth held her hand as they walked inside, but Maddie found herself hunching her shoulders as they neared the crowded restaurant, worried she might run into someone from school, or worse, her dad's friends. Out back, a big group of college kids were playing competitive cornhole on a mowed area of the yard. Behind that was a bonfire surrounded by outdoor furniture. The 21-plus crowd filled every seat. Indoors, families packed into the front restaurant where a big TV blasted a football game and little kids crawled under the tables. It was the first week of October. The windows and ceiling were hung with little paper bats, ghosts, and jack-o'-lanterns. Maddie saw flyers taped up for Fright Farm Haunted Manor out at Beaumont Farms. It was a historical site that put on a haunted house every year. It was pretty famous to the upriver area, but she had never been. Gareth pulled Maddie through the chaos to a small booth at the side of the dining room, far away from the counter and the long line of people waiting to order. Gareth emptied his pockets on the table and threw down his heavy plaid jacket in the booth. Maddie remembered the thick flannel from about 1,000,000 times he had worn it in the hardware store. That surreal feeling descended again. It felt strange to be sitting here at Zippies, sharing a table with him in public, no longer just a fantasy.
How about a large pepperoni?
Sounds good.
You want a beer?
Maddie looked up at him, surprised, then saw a glint in his hazel eye. He was teasing her.
Right, a Coke?
Iced tea?
Got it. See you in a minute.
Gareth left her alone at the table and went to stand in line. Maddie sighed and looked around. She shifted uncomfortably. Her eyes immediately spotted a group of kids staring at her from one of the booths nearby. She thought they might be juniors. They were pointing and whispering, then giggling and texting on their phones. She overheard some of their conversation.
Is that the missing girl who was on the news?
Yeah, she just turned up at school randomly, like nothing happened.
Lame. I thought she got eaten by a wolf.
Maddie slouched down a bit in her seat. Black River High School had less than 400 students, so of course she would be recognized. She messed around with her phone for a moment. Then suddenly she heard a buzzing sound. With a frown, she picked up Gareth's jacket. His scent assailed her like heady perfume, and for a moment, she couldn't think straight. That annoying, potent, masculine scent made her tits swell pleasantly beneath her sweater. Damn. Why did his smell have such a strong effect on her? Then she reached into his pocket where his phone was buzzing. The screen was locked, but she still saw a missed call from Roxy. Roxy? It sounded like a stripper's name. Maddie bit the inside of her cheek, her stomach dropped. Holy shit. She knew, deep down inside, that another woman must exist in Gareth's life, like an ex living on another planet somewhere, but she didn't expect to see a missed call on his phone. Was Roxy his ex? Why would an ex call him on a Friday night? His phone started buzzing again in her hand. Maddie jumped and almost dropped it. Roxy's name appeared again on the cracked screen. Oh no, 2 calls back to back? She must be more than just an acquaintance. Then a text popped up.
Hey, what are you?
Maddie couldn't read all of it because his screen was locked, so she just glimpsed the preview. Her face turned bright red. She didn't know whether or not to feel pissed, guilty, or embarrassed. She shoved his phone back into his jacket and tossed it down on the booth like she was trying to cover a fire. Damn. Why did she have to be such a snoop? She had no right to be going through his phone. Even if it was his own fault for not updating his privacy settings. Just forget it, she thought. It was none of her business, they had only just started dating. But the name ate away at her. She found herself picking at her nails, filled with a sudden, terrible anxiety. Maybe it was his sister? A customer at the garage? An employee? Shit. Maybe an employee. How did she feel about a female employee named Roxy calling him twice on a Friday night? Girls crushed on their bosses all the time. Please, dear God, be a sister, she thought.
Here we go. 1 large pepperoni and breadsticks. Here's your drink. I guess it's a fountain.
Gareth slid the pizza onto the table and flopped down across from her. Without hesitation, he put 2 slices on her plate and set it in front of her. Then he took 3 pieces for himself. He began tearing into the pizza like he hadn't eaten in a year. Maddie reached for a breadstick, her appetite somewhat curbed. Her mind worked over the missed phone calls as she watched him eat. She should just ask him about Roxy. But she couldn't say she was snooping on his phone. That was like a huge breach of privacy or something. So how many years have you lived in Black River? She asked innocently. He raised an eyebrow.
5 or so. Why?
Just curious. Do a lot of people work for you at the garage? He swallowed his first slice almost whole and started on the second one.
Just Vin. Probably gonna have to hire more. Business is picking up this year. It's a good thing. Almost closed up the place a few times.
Right. So, any girls work for you? He gave her a side glance.
No.
Do you have any sisters?
No. 2 brothers. Why the interrogation?
Maddie shrugged, still feeling nervous. I don't know, just wondering. I'm an only child.
Yeah, I figured.
Maddie sighed, frustrated. How was she supposed to ask him about Roxy? She sounded like an ex. It was getting difficult to look at him. Why am I so sensitive? It's not like we've been dating for years. She stood up with her cup. I'm going to get a drink. I'll be right back. Then she turned and walked across the crowded dining room to the drink fountain near the counter. Kitschy decor hung from the walls, like someone had cleared out 5 garage sales and filled up every available surface. Maddie walked past old-school pizza ads, posters, license plates, strings of lights, stuffed animal heads, and a vintage bike frame. Twice she almost got toppled by a child running back and forth from the arcade at the back of the dining room. She saw some familiar faces from school, but no one she really knew. She stepped up to the fountain and got ice, then started filling her glass with iced tea. She tried to clear her head. Just forget about Roxy. She glanced at the booth over her shoulder and saw Gareth checking his phone. She tried to get a look at his expression. Did he seem happy? Was he reading Roxy's text messages right now? A terrible knot of jealousy and insecurity formed in her stomach. She honestly couldn't tell what he was doing.
Oh, look. This bitch.
A nasty voice spoke up from behind her. A zap of electricity ran up Maddie's spine. She turned to see Kaylee and 2 of her cheer squad friends standing in their cheerleading outfits behind her. She blinked in shock, then she looked around the pizza parlor. Why were they here of all places? Guessing by their outfits, a high school football game must have just ended. As the thought went through her head, she noticed the inrush of jocks in their varsity jackets streaming through the door. Luckily, they were all sitting on the other side of the restaurant.
Are you going to move so we can get our drinks?
Fuck off, Maddie said. Kaylee's blonde ringlets were pulled back in a high ponytail. Her pointy face turned into a scowl.
You better watch your back, Muddy. After what you did to Adam, you're lucky his parents didn't press charges. You should be in jail where your redneck ass belongs.
What the fuck are you talking about? You're the one who provoked me.
You psycho bitch broke his nose.
The girls on either side of Kaylee crossed their arms. They might be cheerleaders, but they looked athletic. Maddie didn't fancy fighting all three, not without a baseball bat. The one on the left, a gorgeous black Barbie with blonde extensions woven into her beautiful dark hair, took a threatening step forward.
You got some real issues, you know that? Like you're crazy toxic for real. You think you can just fuck up someone's face and walk away? You mess with one of us, you get the whole pack.
The third girl chimed in.
You're basically dead.
Maddie took a deep breath, trying to control her temper. She thought privately to herself, so I'm the toxic one? She wanted to scream in frustration, but she couldn't lose her shit here in front of 100 people. Inwardly, she cautioned herself. Just let it go, disengage, violence is not the answer. She picked up her drink and turned to walk away. Then one of the girls, she didn't see who, shoved her from behind. Hard. Maddie rammed her ribcage into the edge of the countertop. She spilled her drink all over a basket of hot pepper packets. Her cup went tumbling across the countertop onto the floor. The rest of her drink went on her hoodie.
Damn it! Fuck you!
She screamed and whirled on Kaylee, ready to rake her nails across the bitch's face. Then someone grabbed her from behind. Giant arms went under her armpits and dragged her backwards, lifting her feet off the ground. She kicked for a moment.
Put me down!
Kaylee and her two cheerleader friends stared past Maddie at the man behind her. Kaylee's eyes were wide, her cheeks turned bright red. Gareth set Maddie down but kept a firm grip on her arm.
What are you doing?
His usual baritone growl was somehow even deeper. It wasn't clear who Gareth was speaking to, but the three cheerleaders stared at him as though they had seen a god. Barbie's mouth gaped open just a bit. Girl number 3 looked winded. Then Kaylee recovered. She looked at her two friends.
Oh wow, thank you so much. That crazy cunt was about to attack me. Right, girls? She's fucking psycho, you saved us. That was so heroic of you.
What? You shoved me and spilled my drink.
Maddie tried to rush at Kaylee again, but Gareth's grip on her arm was like an iron chain. He dragged her back toward him. Then he pointed at Kaylee.
I saw all of it. Next time I won't be nice.
Then he dragged Maddie with him away through the packed restaurant. Maddie felt hot tears stinging her eyes. God, she felt crazy. Why did Kaylee make her feel so unhinged? She felt like the whole room was staring at her, though in truth, the place was so packed that maybe only a handful of people had witnessed the exchange. Even then, they'd just seen her spill her drink. Maddie tried to pull her arm away, her cheeks hot with shame and her ears ringing with adrenaline.
Let's just get out of here and go home.
No.
Gareth, please? If we stay, they'll come back around and...
Yeah? And what? We're gonna give up good pizza 'cause some little cunt wants to fight you?
He dumped her back into the booth and slid in next to her, his big body trapping her against the window. His scent washed over her again, warm and spicy, and she felt a tingle move through her belly. He was so close, his leg pressed against hers under the table. He held her barred with his shoulders. She found herself glancing away, struggling against a natural urge to submit. Outside was so dark, she couldn't see the parking lot.
So, you gonna explain that to me?
How much did you see?
All of it. Don't try to lie to me again. They said you were lucky some kid didn't press charges. What did you do?
His voice was soft with warning. She stared up at him, her mouth gaping, his face was stern. This close, she could feel the heat of his body through his sweater. He had rolled up his sleeves to his elbows, revealing the tattoos that covered his muscular forearms. His black hair fell across his shoulders. He looked 5-star hot and intimidating as hell. His accusatory words rang in her head. Why was he looking at her like that? Did he really believe Kaylee's story? He was no better than the teachers and the school principal. Maddie spat angrily. You too? Yeah, fine. I'm the bad kid. I always fuck up somehow.
Just tell me what happened.
Maddie sighed. It was embarrassing to talk about. She couldn't go into every detail. It would take a freaking hour to explain Kaylee's super bitch psychosis. Some of the stuff was so passive and insidious, it didn't even sound like bullying to a third party. The belittling, the subtle nags, spreading rumors. It didn't sound real. But physical fighting? Oh right, that was real. Look, that's Kaylee Makovich. She's like, my enemy, I dunno, it's dumb. She told this boy Adam to give me $20 to flash my tits.
What?
Yeah. She's been spreading rumors that I'm a stripper and I work at Sapphire. So like, kids have been coming up to me since the beginning of the school year, asking for blowjobs. So this guy Adam offers me $20 to flash my tits, and I decked him. Like I think I broke his nose, I don't know, I just ran. It was the same day that night, my trailer got broken in. Her words were unraveling. Her hands started to shake again, remembering the night of the break-in and the gunshot near her head. Maddie felt dangerously close to crying, and she had promised herself not to cry in front of Gareth again. At least not so soon. She was supposed to be mature and responsible, like an adult. But almost getting into a fight at Zippies on their first date really wasn't making her look good. Shit. What if he broke up with her? I'm sorry, I'm really sorry, okay? Like, I wasn't thinking, I know I shouldn't have hit him, I'm lucky his parents didn't report it. I mean, I've been suspended for fighting before and I didn't want it to happen again.
You're a hot fucking mess.
Maddie opened her mouth, shocked by his bluntness, and hurt that he would use those words. I'm really not, I'm responsible. I've been working since I was 16, I'm not fighting at school, I only hit Adam because... Ugh, look, I'm going to graduate this year no matter what.
Yeah? You sure about that?
Of course I am, He shocked her by turning his head and catching her lips in a sudden, deep kiss. He drew it out, his tongue pushing between her lips, his mouth slanting over hers. Over and over.
Fuck.
He said softly into her mouth between kisses. He slid his tongue across her lower lip.
You're a hot fucking mess.
Maddie's face was bright red. He held her trapped between his body and the dark window, shielding her from the restaurant with his big shoulders as he massaged her mouth with his tongue. Fuck. He was going to turn her into a hot mess if he kept kissing her like this. A wave of passion began rising between them. Her heart was racing. He turned his upper body farther towards her. His hand found her jaw, cupping her face in his big palm. He was gentle, his fingers clasping her jaw, yet his hand was firm as he controlled her mouth. She gripped his thick wrist, trembling against his onslaught. His kiss deepened, sucking her tongue into his mouth, where he trapped it with his teeth. She felt a hot wave of testosterone rising off of him like smoke from a fire. She was going to suffocate. He finally released her lips with a groan.
Come on, come with me.
What? He slid out from the booth, dragging her behind him.
Come on, let's play some games. Fucking make the most of it. I want to beat my crazy-ass girlfriend at air hockey.
What? I'm not crazy. Gareth laughed from deep in his chest.
What do you want to play?
It took Maddie a moment to process that she wasn't in trouble and that he seemed to be enjoying himself. If he meant to take her mind off the confrontation with Kaylee, then he had succeeded. Despite it all, she felt herself begin to smile. Then she pointed to a game called Dino Safari, where two people sat in a fake jeep and shot dinosaurs with toy guns. How about that one? Gareth got $10 worth of quarters and climbed into the seat next to her. With a grin, he said,
Ready to get your ass kicked?
Maddie grinned back. You're going to regret this.
Boy, I hope so.
Then she lost track of time shooting dinosaurs. Maddie couldn't remember the last time she had gone to the arcade. Never on a date, and it felt like one. Gareth paid for their games and collected the tickets for Zippy's little prize counter. He kept finding small ways to touch her. His hand on her lower back as they left the dinosaur game, brushing her hair back from her face, sliding his hand up her wrist as he showed her how to play skee-ball. Kissing the top of her head when she beat him at Mortal Kombat. Wrapping his arm around her and pulling her into his shoulder as they waited in line at the ticket counter. He got her a little plastic ring with a spider on it and a handful of Halloween candy. Maddie forgot to look around for Kaylee and the varsity jackets. She forgot to feel claustrophobic in the crowd of screaming children. All that mattered in the sweaty chaos of the pizza parlor was his big body next to her, his hands drawing her attention back to him, and the way her stomach fluttered every time their eyes met. Later on that night, as the moon rose high in the sky, Maddie found herself sitting in Gareth's Camaro with her Converse sneakers kicked up on the dashboard and a bag of Halloween candy in her lap.
The thing is, Maddie, with bullies, you gotta just leave them be.
They sat in his car. It was about 11 p.m. Behind them, the pizza parlor had slowly transformed from an after-school fun zone into a late-night pub. Maddie was sweaty from a few hours playing video games in the humid arcade. She couldn't remember the last time she had laughed so hard. Her fingers were sore from button mashing. They must have played OG Street Fighter for an hour, then other classics. Ninja Turtles, pinball, air hockey, skee-ball, Pac-Man. The list went on and on. She leaned back in the bucket seat of the passenger side with her Converse kicked up on the dash, her hoodie pulled up. Gareth sat next to her with his elbow on the door and his head propped on his hand. Watching her. She sighed, messing with the string of her hoodie. Kaylee and I used to be friends, back before my mom died. I don't understand why things changed. She told me it was my fault for being a bad friend. I guess I wasn't there for her when she needed me. She said I was toxic.
When your mom died, you mean? She can fuck right off then. Don't take that shit to heart, Maddie.
I mean, I wasn't there for her at all that year.
So what? So you deserve to become a target? Bullies don't think like you or me. They don't need a reason. Seeing you weak and vulnerable is reason enough. They just like the rush of pinning someone down. You said her name was Makovich.
Yeah, why?
Her mom was a customer at the garage.
Maddie groaned. Just thinking of Mrs. Makovich gave her anxiety. Yeah, she's the worst. Kaylee's mom comes through the hardware store like she owns the place. Nobody wants to deal with her. I guess maybe she does own this town in a way. Their family is super rich. I think she said her dad owns part of Main Street or something like that.
Ain't nobody that rich if they're living in Black River.
There's million-dollar houses out in Elk Haven. Maddie rarely went out that way. Elk Haven was a gated community a few miles down Highway 20 in the opposite direction of her trailer. It was a place for fancy folk who wanted to pretend they lived in a wilderness resort. They even had a little community gym and campground with showers and RV hookups. Maddie remembered going to Kaylee's house a few times in middle school. She'd never seen so many bedrooms and staircases, and the kitchen island was a solid sheet of quartz. Maddie spoke up. Kaylee acts like it's the Hamptons. Her house is like an apartment complex. It could fit so many people. She's so lucky. She lives like a princess. Gareth was quiet, then he shrugged.
Yeah, well, that might change. I heard they're getting a divorce. Mrs. Makovich will be Miss Banner soon.
Maddie looked skeptical. How do you know that?
She told me.
At the garage?
Yeah.
Why would she tell you that? Gareth raised an eyebrow.
Why else? She wanted to see if I'd bite.
It took Maddie a moment to figure out what he meant. Then, in horror, she exclaimed, You mean Kaylee's mom wanted to date you? Gareth laughed.
Date? No, I don't think she wanted that.
Then what? Oh my God. She wanted to hook up? Like fuck you? Gareth shrugged, and Maddie's eyes widened. She looked him over, reminded of their age gap. With all the fun they were having at Zippies, she almost forgot about it. She muttered. That's weird.
Is it?
Yeah, a bit. He turned and leaned toward her.
How weird. Too much?
I don't know. Maddie started to feel self-conscious. She had all but forgotten about Roxy's calls and text messages, but now her mind jumped to them. She knew Gareth had a lot more experience under his belt than her. She could easily imagine him being happy with someone his own age. How old are you anyway?
28.
Oh. Suddenly Maddie felt shy.
I'll be 29 next month. What about you?
I'm, 19. My birthday was in August.
Maddie cringed. Fuck. A solid 10 years? Of course, she had always known about their age difference, but hearing him say it out loud put their years in stark contrast. She had no idea what it meant to be 28. Or even 25. And here she was, whining about being bullied in school. He really must see her like a kid. Fuck, what was she doing with a guy like him? Maybe she had daddy issues after all. He should be with someone his own age, she thought. The imaginary vision of Roxy rose up in her mind. She imagined some badass chick with tattoos and black pinup hair working second shift as a bartender, someone wild and fun and cherry red lipstick. Not some sad teenager like herself in a second-hand sweater, a tomboy getting picked on in school. He could do a lot better.
I mean, isn't it weird for you, dating someone in high school? I'm sure dealing with bullying and homework isn't what you signed up for.
The question hung between them. She regretted asking it the moment the words left her mouth. She felt vulnerable. He studied her in the dark, quiet cab of the car. His eyes glinted gold in the night. The roof of the car cast his face in deep shadow, shielding him from the harsh white light of a lone street lamp. He looked a lot like a wolf, she had to admit. She was reminded, suddenly, of the times he would find her on the mountain, a silent presence with his secretive, gold-glinting eyes. She was much younger then, 14, 15. Her secret crush had grown slowly over time as she noticed more and more how good-looking he was. But in the beginning, he had been a ghost, a mysterious god of the forest, someone who made her feel safe and less alone, despite the strangeness of their connection. He was her secret. What we are doing is forbidden. If she told anyone their story, they would think he was some predator, but she was the stalker in this situation. Normal people would never understand how he had saved her, just by showing up in the darkness.
Do I find it weird? No. Why? Do you?
I mean, a little. You're almost 30. You're older than some of my teachers. Maybe I have, like, issues. You know it's kinda wrong, isn't it, for us to be together?
Do you feel like it's wrong? Like you'd rather be with someone your own age?
His question made her tremble, though she wasn't sure why. She thought of the little white bear he had given her to hold, how he always came to her rescue. The thought of losing him, even going back to the way things were before, left her gasping for air. No, she said quickly. No, I like this.
You like this?
Yeah, I mean, I like you. It feels right. But what if I have daddy issues and there's something super wrong about me? She cringed saying it out loud.
Alright, so let's talk about that. Daddy issues. You know what those are?
I think it's when you're into older guys.
Sure. So, do you get a lot of crushes on old dudes?
No, not really.
Just me?
Yeah. Gareth grinned wolfishly.
Then maybe you're just into me. Anyways, so what if you want a daddy, Mads? You don't have one at home. Well, you do, but he's a piece of shit.
Maddie glanced away, a little embarrassed. He was so direct. It made her feel like she was under a spotlight.
To be honest, Mads, I think I met you for a reason. You need someone to protect you. I think that's what you want. Call it daddy issues, but you just want protection. Nothing wrong with that.
Maddie was silent for a minute, digesting his words. She huddled into her hoodie self-consciously. He obviously didn't care about their age gap, or any other issues she might have. It's like he knew her, really knew her, in a way she didn't even know herself. She looked up at him, searching her eyes, feeling something deep inside of herself relax. She had never talked like this with anyone before. She finally asked, her voice soft. But shouldn't you want to be with someone more independent? Someone you don't have to protect or take care of.
That's just what boyfriends do, baby girl.
She stared at him. She found that difficult to believe.
Let me put it this way. A man protects the people who need him. That's what I believe. And you need me. So here I am.
I mean, what if you get tired of protecting me?
Hasn't happened yet. We've known each other a while now, Mads. You think I haven't thought this through?
She actually had no idea what he thought about their history.
You don't think I'm genuine? Or wait, you think I'll abandon you eventually, right? So you're testing me. You want to know when I'm gonna dip out.
Dip out?
Yeah, take off, ditch you, set boundaries, or whatever the hell people are calling that bullshit nowadays. You think I'm gonna drop you on your ass right when you need me the most?
Maddie stared at him. It was like he could read her mind. Wait, how did you know?
It's not hard to see you're scared, baby girl. We're not that different, Mads. My old man had a drinking problem too. More than that. So I get it.
Maddie blinked. I didn't know that. Gareth sighed and sat back against the door, his eyes turning to the night outside the window.
Well, how would you? Not like I've told you much about my life, but we all got our stories, Mads. This age difference is no big deal. You know how much crazy shit I've seen? I've seen women in Iraq who hide their faces their whole lives from everyone but their families. I know married couples in Black River right now who are poly, with 3, even 4 or 5 partners, and twice as many kids. There's swingers who swap spouses at parties. Transgender couples, asexual, pansexual, heteroflexible, you name it. Just last year, I read an article in the Davenport newspaper about a middle school history teacher caught with a male student. Now that's nasty shit.
Maddie grimaced. Yeah, I remember it went viral on Pick Place. That was like the first week back to school. They held an assembly about it and everything. She was tutoring him over summer vacation, right?
I just read the headlines. But this, what we're doing, is not that, Mads.
Right. So you're happy dating some kid like me? Gareth made a show of looking her over, his eyes combing her from head to toe.
I'm looking at a grown-ass woman, not some kid. What's so wrong about you? You're a good person. You work hard. You're fun. You got a job and pay bills. You got the shit end of the stick with your stepdad. I get that. But hey, you're still cute.
Maddie laughed.
You said you were 18? 19?
Yeah, 19.
So what?
Maddie felt better. Maybe the age gap wasn't that weird after all. It worked for them. She gazed at the angular planes of his face and his masculine neck. They had known each other for so long, but this felt like their first real conversation. Her mind went back to the hardware store and all those years they spent dancing around each other. Do you remember when you bought me that mace?
When those 2 creeps were bothering you?
Yeah.
Yep. That was a few years ago. Why?
She took a breath and looked out the window. God, why did they have to be sitting so close? Admitting all this made her stomach squirm in a delicious way. I really wanted you back then, like, for real. I had such a crush on you.
Yeah? So you had a little crush back then?
It was a big crush. He laughed.
Yep, I figured.
What? No!
I knew it. I could tell. You turned all cute and pink anytime I came over.
He reached over and pinched her chin suddenly. Oh shit. Maddie thought she was going to die. Gareth leaned in and caught her lips. In the privacy of the Camaro, Maddie felt like they were on the dark side of the moon. He kissed her slow and gentle, his lips brushing over hers, his mouth soft.
So, you still got a crush on me?
He spoke against her mouth, his voice deep in his throat. She shivered, hard. She couldn't speak.
Huh. I like when you get all shy. Now that you told me, maybe I should have teased you more in the hardware store.
Maddie closed her eyes. God damn it, his words sent a jolt of electricity down to her clit. His kiss deepened, his tongue entering her mouth, tasting her. She tried to kiss him back, and he playfully sucked her tongue into his mouth. His hand reached up to cradle the back of her head. He kissed her like that for several minutes, wet and bold and hungry. Maddie couldn't think. Couldn't breathe. All she could feel was the heat pooling in her belly. Then he broke away, his lips hovering over hers, a trail of saliva dripping down her chin.
I should have called you back to the scrap lumber section. Yeah, I could have cornered you back there. That aisle is always empty. Could have been fun.
Gareth! She gasped. His hand went up under her sweater, unhooking her bra with ease. With a low growl of frustration, he pulled her shirt up and took her breast into his mouth, sucking on her swollen nipple. She gasped at the intense sensation. He squeezed her breast with his hand, pushing it deeper into his mouth. He sucked on her tit, his tongue flicking across her sensitive peak. Maddie heard herself moan. She didn't know she could make sounds like that. In her mind, she imagined the hardware store. She would take him to the very back of the warehouse, between the long stacks of baseboard and timber framing. There, he'd catch her wrist. Push her up against the wall between the piles of wood. It was so wrong. Why did it make her so wet?
Look at what you do to me.
He picked up her hand and pushed it against the crotch of his jeans. Maddie gasped as she felt his erection. He was so large. He held her hand against him. He wrapped her fingers around his length through the fabric, making sure she felt his size.
Fuck, Maddie.
It's really big. She met his intense gaze, his eyes like dark whiskey, hooded and heavy with desire, his hair a wild mess around his shoulders. He searched her face. Then he leaned forward and took her lips again. His kiss was hot and forceful, full of pent-up, desperate need.
You really want me inside you?
She felt like she was drowning. She nodded. Suddenly her phone started to vibrate. Maddie groaned. It took her a moment to switch gears. Her body felt hot and heavy, her thoughts sluggish with desire. She pulled her phone out of her hoodie. She didn't recognize the number on the cracked screen, but it was close to midnight. Seemed like it might be an emergency. She glanced at Gareth. He looked about as frustrated as she felt, his face drawn and intense, his eyes burning with lust. He took a deep breath and cracked the window to cool off. Then she picked up the phone. Hello?
Hello. This is Officer Langjurek with the Davenport Police Department. Is this Maddy Donovan?
Yes? Maddie's heart stopped. Was she in trouble?
Your father is here. We need someone to pick him up. He says you can give him a lift home. He was arrested for public drunkenness and threatening an officer.
It's pretty late.
If you don't get him now, then we will have to surrender your dog to the animal shelter.
My dog? I don't understand. My dad has a dog with him?
Yes, he says it's his dog.
She shared a look with Gareth, who could overhear the conversation easily in the quiet car, even if the phone wasn't on speaker. He shrugged.
Well, if it's a dog that needs rescuing.
Maddie almost laughed. Right, sure, We're driving from Black River, so we'll be there in 45 minutes.
See you then, Miss Donovan.
The phone went silent as the call hung up. Gareth straightened up and put his keys in the ignition.
Not how I plan to spend the evening, but I think it's worth saving a life.
How the hell did my dad get a dog?
I guess we'll find out.
Maddie buckled in as Gareth's Camaro roared to life like a jet engine, utterly destroying the silence of the night. He turned out onto the street and started towards the interstate. Thank you for listening to Heart of the Wolf by A. Mariposa. Picking up my dad from jail is not the ideal way to end a first date. I wonder what Dean will think of Gareth. Subscribe to this channel and keep listening for more story, and don't forget, Heart of the Wolf is now available in print and ebook format on Amazon.com.